the Mets executives panel. I'm Shannon Shark from MetsPolice.com. So the Mets executives are over there. We're going to thank them for waiting a couple minutes. There aren't too many people who have played for the New York Mets and won world championships with the New York Mets. So when one shows up as a surprise at the Queens Baseball Convention, you change your plans and you welcome Mr. Art Shamsky. So thank you, Mr. Shamsky, for coming. And I'm going to pass to the great Greg Prince from Faith and Fear in Flushing, who I'll let Greg speak for himself. But Greg and Art, thanks a lot. And then the Mets executives in a couple minutes.
After just 4 seasons at the helm in the Flushing, and it was too soon then, and it's too soon to consider now. What Gil did and who Gil was should never be forgotten. And the award is our small way, as Mets fans, of keeping his memory alive. Our second goal was to annually thank a special figure from Mets history for warming our hearts, brightening our spirits, and lighting our way. You know, that we meet in winter. So of course we want to spend a few minutes thinking about somebody like that, because what is baseball for but to get us through the times when there is no baseball? The first 3 years of QBC, we were honored to present the Gil Hodges Award to Gil's son, Gil Jr., and Art joined us that Saturday. Ed Charles a couple of years ago, and Buddy Harrelson last year, even though we didn't have a QBC. Dan Tuig, one of our QBC organizers, went out to Central Islip, gave Buddy the award between games of a Long Island Ducks doubleheader, and what all our recipients had in common is that they couldn't have been happier to talk about Gil and remember what a man, what a manager he was. And this year our recipient isn't with us, but he takes a backseat to nobody when it comes to warming hearts, brightening spirits, and lighting the way for Mets fans. So the 2017 winner of the Gil Hodges Unforgettable Fire Award is Tom Seaver. Later on today at 5 o'clock, we're going to have a panel talking about Tom's career, because we're up to the 50th anniversary of it, believe it or not. Wow. But when you think about Tom Seaver, whether it's the rookie phenom immediately establishing himself as one of the best in the business, the incandescent star pitching his team toward a most improbable championship, the indefatigable ace continually defining and perfecting his craft across a generation, or the guy who went into the Hall of Fame as a Met, the first one. Well, I don't know how you're not warmed, you're not brightened, you're not absolutely lit at the thought of Tom Seaver. So, you know, we are happy to honor just the thought of him, the pitcher he was, the man he is. And, you know, he's making wine in California. You know it's the best wine possible, because he always gave his best effort possible. And I'm just going to read one quote here from Tom about Gil and the relationship they had. This was from when he went into the Hall of Fame in '92. The one guy who taught me how to be a professional, to really be a pro, was Gil Hodges. If there were other people who taught me how to get here and what to do when I got here, Gil Hodges told me how to be a pro and stay here. The most important man in my life from the professional standpoint of my career. And God, I know that you're letting Gil look down here today, and I know he is part of this. So I want to say, if we can, just for a moment, in our minds, if we could transport ourselves to Shea Stadium, to 1969, to the pregame introductions during the World Series. Let's give it up for number 14, the manager of the New York Mets, and number 41, starting pitcher of the New York Mets. Thank you to Gil and to Tom. And importantly right now, thank you to Art Shamsky for taking part in this with us. So, Art?
Thank you. I will definitely make sure Tom gets this. Is there a box with this so I can ship it out to him? Or
we'll make that
I'm just going to kind of...
We have packaging
All right.
supplies.
Yeah, great. No, it's well-deserved, and sorry Tom couldn't be here, and on behalf of him, I'll certainly make sure that he gets it, and there's nobody more deserving than Tom. Great pitcher. I was telling somebody the other day, and I played against him for a few years when I came up with the Cincinnati Reds, and looking back in the years that he pitched when I was there, I never really saw him get hit hard more than maybe once or twice, and I wouldn't even know if you'd classify that as a bad outing. The first game of the World Series, of course, he gave up a home run to the first batter, Don Buford, but the only other time I really saw him really have a not great game was in the first game of the playoffs against the Atlanta Braves. We won that game, but he wasn't at his best. But for the most part, I don't think he was as good as anybody in the National League back then or in baseball. Of course, that was the era of Bob Gibson, Koufax, Drysdale, Marichal, Ferguson, Jenkins, Jim Bunning. All these guys are in the Hall of Fame. Steve Carlton. I mean, Tom was as good as anybody, and to this day, I think you look back on his career as one of the best ever who have ever pitched, and certainly for the Mets, he is still the face of the franchise.
What did it mean when you, most of your games in right field, what did it mean playing behind a pitcher of that caliber versus any other pitcher?
Well, you just knew that every pitch could be, every play could be coming to you. It was a pitcher that was really competitive. I really got firsthand knowledge of him when I was playing first base. We would go, whenever you needed to go to the mound, something about the game or something. I played most of my career in right field, but I was in right field for the almost perfect game against the Chicago Cubs. He was just a terrific competitor, and the reality of it is, and I use this, we joke about this, is that when Tom pitched, particularly against the guys that I mentioned before, you knew that you were going to win quick or you were going to lose quick. Those games are always under 2 hours. He was always around the plate. It was a terrific competitor. He could swing the bat pretty good. He could field the position, but I don't think when you put him in the category of all those great pitchers in the 60s and 70s at that era, I don't think you could say anybody was better than him, and he was certainly in the top of baseball as far as pitching back then. He was a great competitor and a great career. There's no doubt about it. I mean, look at his wins and losses, and I know the Mets, when they traded him, there was a lot of controversy about that first time they traded him, but I mean, in the annals of the game, in the history of the Met franchise, I don't think anybody is more well known than Tom Seaver.
Well, you mentioned the almost perfect game. You're standing there in right field. It's coming. Sixth inning, seventh inning. How aware of you are, and what are you thinking as a fielder? Are you hoping? I hope I get in on this history, or are you like, let him hit to AG?
You know you're part of a special thing going on. It was the kind of year though that we were in special things all the time in 1969. But again, when Tom pitched, you were always on your toes because, again, he was around the batters. Unlike a guy like, say, Nolan Ryan, who had a great arm, but in that point of his career was always 3-2, 3-1, walking batters. So.